All right, so we are going to get started. It looks like our class is filling up pretty quick. My name is James Rupe, and I have been researching and building on blockchain for about 9 years now. And I started with Bitcoin technology when it first entered the environment, and I was pushed into it by a full stack developer. So I didn't learn about Bitcoin from YouTube and the promise of money and wealth and on Get Rich Quick. It was actually from a code stance on how the technology could replace current institutions on how they validate transactions globally. And that was really interesting, and so we started to dive in to understand what the technology could do, and it looks like it's doing it. This is our 12, 13 year with Bitcoin. And so actually I think we're closer to 16 years, or 15, 16 years, something like that. And so we're seeing this technology start to get mass adoption. We're seeing this technology start to radically change how things are being done, and the potential is everywhere now. The implementation of the technology is to the point where the individuals simply need to ask, understand, learn, and they can start to deploy it to, and the goal is with technology is to create more efficiencies, accuracies, and tracking in the current system. And especially when we're talking about tracking value and money, right now our current system is floating money for like up to 45 days across the planet. And a lot of people would say, hey, that sounds like a Ponzi scheme, right? I don't know if it's a Ponzi scheme, but it's just the way the system was built, and it has lagged against the pace of the economy. We move at a very rapid pace. The technology is moving a lot faster than the system, and so blockchain is the opportunity for our new technology to start to leverage this system. And so if it's here and if it's growing and if we're starting to see acceptance, how can individual retail people take advantage of it? And this is where I come in. Me being in the space so long, I've learned about a lot of blockchain and how it works. And I've discovered interesting things about different chains. A chain is not a chain, is not a chain. They're not all the same. They function quite differently under the hood. Some of them have fee structures or monopolistic attitudes or control mechanisms. And what's really interesting is it's all done under the guise of free money. And because that's what Bitcoin represents. But not all chains are actually doing that. Some of them are quite captive, and some of them are quite risky in their design and how they deploy things. And what I've discovered over time is that certain things matter, and these fundamental values, if you can lay them onto blockchains, you can find or predict what will maintain its value over time. And logically, so we'll start with some simple concepts so you guys can kind of get on board with what I'm talking about. Inflation. So right now we have an American dollar that is pegged to a government promise, and they have the ability to produce more dollars. And because they have that ability to produce more dollars, they can print them and they can hand them to somebody, but that devalues what everybody else is holding. And so we see this inflationary component. Blockchain, and the reason why Bitcoin is so valuable or perceived as so valuable is because it's a fixed supply asset class. And so you can't create more. There's only 21 million and many have been lost already. And so as money pours into it, the value goes up and nobody can manipulate that value out unless they cash the money out. And so we see an honest asset class in Bitcoin. And so that's just one problem that's solved, is the inflationary and government control of money is solved in Bitcoin. But we also see a lot of other problems in the world, simple problems, things that can be solved utilizing Bitcoin through validation. One thing I didn't know is UNLV has a problem. They get a lot of applications, and a lot of the applications, proof of education, are false. And so one of their biggest problems is constantly digging through the trenches of all of the applications to make sure everything's been confirmed and validated through other schools, and there's big lag times. And blockchain can solve that. There's digital identity and credential solutions inside of blockchain that are ready to deploy. And so we're going to see our future look a little bit different on how things are done. It's probably going to be done and settled through blockchain whenever we need to validate or confirm something. And so we no longer need institutions to confirm for us. We can actually get on our phones, use an application, and do a confirmation right there on the spot. Meaning, so an example would be, you just graduated with your doctorate and you're going for your interview, and they need your credentials. It's as simple as you holding up a QR and them scanning that QR and them looking, and they're pinging the school's website, and they have their list of graduates and their degrees, and you come up confirmed on that list and say, oh yeah, you've got all your credentials. Congratulations, this is wonderful. And so that process that I just described takes about 15 days usually. You know, you have to write your school, get your transcripts, they send you a copy in a sealed envelope, and then you have to forward it on to the other school. All these things happen, and they're really unnecessary modes that we're seeing right now. And I talk about that inefficiency when I compare Netflix to Blockbuster. Now, I've got some young groups in here, so you might not understand the inefficiency, but we're going to go over it just so you can really hammer it in. So I'm from the day of Blockbuster. You know, that was awesome. VHS was great. Yeah. And so the process in which we would do that is we would get in the car. First, we have to figure out if we wanted to see a movie, right? We get in the car, we drive to the local Blockbuster, and what's the first thing we do? We run to the box, because we want the new releases, and all the new releases are in the box, right? And so we ask the person to go through the box, and then we search through all the videotapes, and sometimes they have our movie, sometimes they don't. You check out the tape with the attendant, you go home, you watch it, please be kind, rewind. Right, we got to do that. Yep. Otherwise, you're going to get a fee, right? You got to do it. And so you rewind the tape and you make sure it makes it back to the box. And that was the process of watching a movie. Well, when Netflix came out and they were able to stream at higher speeds because of network bandwidth, all of a sudden it was turn on the TV, click the movie, and hit play.
Well,
and
no, originally they didn't have it. Originally, they were just shipping the DVDs.
The DVDs, the 100-second DVDs. But you're right.
Netflix on a third day after.
Everybody did, right? And you got that stack of 100 DVDs, and you had to return each one after you watched it.
When they first came up with the streaming, it was it was an issue because the infrastructure, the internet connection wasn't there.
Right. But it evolved.
It kind of forced the operators to get it. So now people don't even know that Netflix used to ship the DVDs.
Right, of course. It evolved over time, and it utilized technology to make itself more efficient.
Exactly.
And this is the core of what is happening in blockchain. Okay, and so instead of us having that cumbersome process of renting movies, now we just click and go, and the technology does everything under the hood right behind us, and we don't know. Now, you're right, it was rough in the beginning. Right now, the beginning of blockchain, it was rough in the beginning.
Still haven't figured out.
Right.
They're still having, if there's run on a particular movie or stuff, they cannot provision enough number.
So it's not perfect, right? But it does exist, and it did evolve, and it did improve with technology, and I think that's the goal. Yeah. So what we're looking at is we have a whole bunch of institutions that were structured in a time and built in a time where technology wasn't the apex of everything. It was paper, pencil, institution, group, and now we're migrating to a global network that is autonomous, and it will confirm everything globally. And self-governing is what it is. And so we don't have all of those broken up or fragmented checkpoints. Everything is instant and it's on the chain. And so when you consider that, the big question is this is possibly going to have value in the future? And if we buy an asset class that can't be devalued because it's a fixed asset class, that's a good idea. And so what are the other things that we should look at when we're picking or looking at these networks? Because what I see and what I've seen, and I'll give you an example of the first bull market after Bitcoin, there was Bitcoin that erected, bam, and it was this huge thing, and everybody's like, wow, what is this? And all of a sudden, pop, 1,000 other blockchains popped up, making the exact same promise that Bitcoin was making. But they weren't decentralized, or they had owners, or maybe they were decentralized, but they didn't have a fixed supply, or maybe the network, the way it operated, allowed for monopolistic attitudes, or people to kind of take control or do things to people. And so nobody really noticed this, and so they started dividing their value. Instead of putting it in Bitcoin, it just got spread over all these other chains plus Bitcoin. And then what happened, the bull market went, price went up, and then everything crashed down, and 9,000 other projects disappeared. And there was only a couple hundred and Bitcoin remaining. And so a lot of people got taken because people were like, well, let's ride this wave. We'll make something fake, we'll pump it, and then we'll bail, and we'll take all this money. And that is still happening today on blockchain. People do not understand that there's only certain things that will persist over time, and you have to do about 6,000 years of research into financial history to understand what they are. I've done that research. Okay, I've watched over 100 different videos, read 30 different books on money, value, friction of money, investing techniques, and the why. And Bitcoin does capture and mirror what we perceive as valuable historically for human beings. And so Gold mimics these things as well. And so if you take the attributes of gold and Bitcoin, you'll notice that they're very similar. You can't make gold, right?
Yeah, you can, it's a little bit of symbolic because you can still manufacture gold. So the amount of gold.
Yeah, so the quantity of gold. So right, when what he's talking about, you can still manufacture gold. It's laid out on the planet and it's unmined. And so we don't know the actual physical supply, but we have an account of a certain supply. The problem is the account is validatable.
Yeah, I mean, you can take a lab-grown diamonds and
Yeah,
diamonds.
but we're just talking about gold specifically in this one.
What I'm saying is,
yeah,
diamond used to be like also something like a gold,
right,
and a hedge against inflation or whatever.
Right.
But now,
we can't.
Lab-grown diamonds is just kind of up.
And that's actually a really great example. So what you're seeing is, in history, we used to use minerals, diamonds, gold as stores of value, and diamonds actually lost their seat once we were able to manufacture them. And so things can be usurped in this environment, and that's a great example. Gold is about to be usurped by blockchain. Why? Because gold is siloed. It's controlled by institutions. It's very difficult to validate, and we can't actually use gold. Gold isn't very liquid. There's so many mediators to cashing in your gold. You don't get premium money on your cashing in of gold, but you do get the current value of Bitcoin, and it is liquid, highly liquid, globally tradable instantly, all over the planet, as a matter of fact. And the bank doesn't close. The network's open 24/7. So these are really powerful things when you consider holding your value, and that's why we're here today. We're interested in this technology. We see that it's taking off. We understand that it is got something very new to it that nothing on the planet has ever had before. And so how do we hold it? How do we contain it? Yeah, question.
Why is Bitcoin then so volatile?
It's volatile because it's honest. So consider our money and the manipulation characteristics of it. We have interest rates. We have reasons that will cause people to spend and not spend their money. Bitcoin is honest. When value goes in, price goes up. When value goes out, price goes down. And so instead of us, we were born in a box. And we see things a certain way because that's the way it was. But it's not necessarily the best way. And so getting used to the volatility in honest assets that can't be manipulated by value, inflation, or government control is something that we need to start seeing as a feature more than a bug. It is the current existence of these types of systems, because they are honest, that they fluctuate in this way. Now, when volume goes in over time, the fluctuations will always be at the top, like the current of an ocean. And you'll see stability ride through the core. Okay, and that's what we're doing right now. We're going through these turbulent times of adoption, but eventually those ebbs and flows will be so high up, we're going to be down here and it won't really matter. And it'll be those fluctuations that are global transactions all over the world. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. But right now we're in the turbulence of transition, and so this is why we see such huge ebbs and flows. And we might see larger ebbs and flows in the future, but we're going to be buried in so many zeros it won't really matter. Okay, and the reason why I say we're going to be buried in so many zeros is because there's only 21 million Bitcoins on the planet, and yet we have over $400 trillion $400 trillion in value stored as assets. And if assets are going to be categorized and locked into blockchain, then all that value eventually has to transition into the blockchain environment. And how it'll transfer and where it'll transfer is unknown, and this is the game. So if we don't know where the value is going to move, what do we pick? Right?
Well, at the end of the day, it's still a ledger. It's just how you have to keep the count.
Well, yeah, the difference between ledger technology like the 1500s, right, which was the original use of the ledger, is the fact that there's no individuals controlling the ledger. That's the magic. Yeah. So it's a ledger, it's an autonomous ledger that anybody can validate. Yes, very good. So how do we pick? Well, we pick because we want to preserve value. So if we want to preserve value, it has to have a fixed supply. So when you're looking at blockchains, I want you to consider that when you're looking at them. Hey, first question, is it a fixed supply asset class? You'll be greatly disappointed finding out that most blockchains do not have a fixed supply. You can print to infinity, just like the dollar. Which means you can buy it now today, and it'll go up today, but at some point, somebody possesses the power to devalue that asset. And you must be aware of that, especially if you're thinking you're buying something to preserve value. Another thing is that whether it's controlled by any one entity, business, or government, we want to make sure that if we're buying something to preserve our value, that a government can't shut it down or control it or lock it away, or a company can't do the same. So XRP, has anybody ever heard of that? This is a really, really cool thing, right? Now, this is a man that saw blockchain, and he created a great business idea for fast settlement transactions. And he owns this blockchain, he owns this company, and this is not blockchain. He's just using the tech in a private way, and you can buy shares of his company, but when you buy it, you are funding Brad Garlinghouse. You are funding him. You're not funding yourself or anybody else. It's his private blockchain company. So, will it go up? Absolutely. Did Apple go up? Did Microsoft go up? All of these companies went up, but it's not sovereign money. It's not sovereign money. And if you check the metrics, you'll see the quantities and supplies, max supplies. You see no decentralization. You see no max supply. And so basically what that is a product. That is the new version of a business on blockchain. And it does not represent the ethos of why blockchain first started. And the reason why blockchain first started is they wanted our money out of government control and out of manipulation, as money always has been and should have been. Just like religion should be out of government as well, right? And so you keep these three pillars separate: religion, government, and money. And so the goal of Bitcoin and value preservation outside of government control is the goal.
And you control by consensus.
Consensus, of course. That's what we mean by control.
The difference between somebody owning the blockchain and not owning is the consensus. When you own
Correct.
it, you're always in a consensus.
You're the master. You're the god of that blockchain, right? And so we don't want people to be the gods of our money, because then they can control everything. They can change transactions. They can change balances. They can strip you. This is the problem. And so when we look at blockchains, we want fixed supply assets. We want decentralized control, which means you want to see nodes that run this globally all over the planet, because that means no government has all the nodes and no government has control of all that tech. It's the people that are running it, and you want the people controlling the money, right? And so you have to look for these things in networks. So fixed supply, decentralized. What are the other ones that we should look at if we're starting to think of value?
Well, I think it's also accessibility is important, openness, basically.
Accessibility, right? So it has to be a global chain. It has to be transparent. And it also has to have a purpose. It has to have utility. Okay? There are a lot of copies of blockchains out there. Quite literally, they're exact copies. I've checked. Doge or Bitcoin, Litecoin, are copies of each other. One just changed the name. And in the beginning, Litecoin was the test bed for Bitcoin. So when we were running around and Bitcoin was brand new, if they wanted to make changes on the chain, we'd say, hey, we got to do it on Litecoin. We have to test it out, see if it's good. It'd run on Litecoin, be like, great. And let's migrate it into Bitcoin. I don't know why Litecoin is turning into some independent chain. I don't know what's going on with that, but I certainly don't see it as a value store or something. It could be a business or a project or something, but it's not. It doesn't represent fixed value preservation out of government control. It doesn't represent that. Yes?
Why are there rumors of sovereign governments trying to build or create their own Bitcoin reserves and all that stuff?
Because if all money is leaving institutions that have control over value for decentralized value, if they purchase Bitcoins and all of the value starts migrating into that, they will have a tremendous value store for their banks and for their money. And so getting ahead of it and purchasing it right away while it's cheaper as money starts to pour in is the smart attitude. And I think we're starting to see this worldwide even, and corporations as well. Microsoft has it on their sheets to vote to hold as store. Apple, all these companies are, MicroStrategy started that, right? Yeah, Michael Saylor is contagious in the way that he can share his ideas and knowledge. He's from MIT, he's a rocket scientist, the man is pretty much a genius, and he saw the value in having a fixed asset supply like Bitcoin, and he started to purchase it as his underlying asset for his company, and he ended up outperforming every single company, including Apple, Microsoft, everybody, and he was a small tech company. And so now he actually has outperformed them, and now all the companies are saying, why? And he's saying, look, you goofs, we don't have to make a product. Bitcoin's rising 200% per year. Put your assets in there. And as the world piles in value, you're going to get richer and richer because all the money is migrating into a place of honest validation without government control. And so he sees this, and so he's like, just buy, do not sell. Why is he saying don't sell? Who else is buying? Who else is buying Bitcoin?
Well,
The masses.
the Russian government right now.
The Russian government?
It's actually financing its war
Through crypto, right? The fact of the matter is these tokens are not chained to any government. They're not tied to any alliance. They're value exchange and trade and use, which means countries will use it to finance wars. They will use it to exchange value for resources with other countries. Why? Because other things can't be trusted. I know China is devaluing their yuan like crazy because they have the digital yuan they're pushing everybody into. Yeah. America is doing the same thing. We're printing more dollars, devaluing our purchasing power, but then we're introducing the promise of this thing called Bitcoin, a new global reserve, a new U.S. reserve that Trump wants to put into play in the next couple of days.
So what happens to all these foreign exchange reserves that everybody has when they're trading and doing, that just disappears? I mean,
isn't it?
Whole dollars just so that they can buy.
You know, if Blockbuster had a tape on this, I'd say let's go, but the Blockbuster just died too. Right? You have to understand, just because we were born in this box and this is how things were, it does not mean that these things won't change. And we have to accept the fact that great change is happening, and it is going to be in the guise of efficiency and cost for the people. And so, yes, we have these huge institutions that will have to relabel and repurpose themselves. I don't think they'll die. But not everybody can do what I'm teaching. Not everybody can self-custody their assets. Grandma can't. Young kids can't. There will always be places for institutions to hold your value for a certain time. Okay, and so these institutions won't die, but they will augment, if that makes any sense. And so, not to get too far off course, but really that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at this massive shift of where value is housed and who validates that value. And we have an opportunity to purchase these items now freely and self-custody them. And what's really cool about it is when you do that, when you purchase it in self-custody in a private wallet, you're off US government soil. And so this becomes a tax-free event.
That's originally how the government was supposed to be financed.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yes, it becomes a question.
I hear all these stories about the IRS going after people.
Absolutely. If you cash it out, you have to pay taxes.
Sure.
But if you grow it, it's like having it in some sort of IRA, but the government can't touch it. So you get free tax-free growth. And now I've structured my company as a research and development and education company on blockchain. And we actually develop on this software. And so the money we use to develop with from blockchain, we repurpose and put into the company. So you can actually operate in ways where it's completely tax-free.
Yeah, I was actually explaining this to someone actually who was actually I expressed it in the way somebody actually explained it to me, and I understood in 1 second. We do not tax the wealth, we actually tax the creation of the wealth. So once you're not creating the wealth, then you cannot be taxed.
There's nothing to tax. And trust me, I've tested it. I've talked to more than a few attorneys about it, and then I did my taxes this year, and everything was green lighted, and I even confirmed. So it is true. So do your own research. Make sure you're safe. Don't ever not pay your taxes. You should pay your taxes, but you should only pay what enters the government lines. So meaning when you pull it off of your private wallet, move it into Coinbase, and cash it out of Coinbase into your account, that is your taxable event. Because now you've entered the government rails, 20% out for taxes at the end of the year. But whatever you leave in your wallets, whatever you exchange or trade or grow, that stays out of the government's guise currently. Could that change?
Yeah,
Maybe.
It will,
Maybe. But right now, but right now this is the Wild West, and this is the greatest time for us to do this because it is very much unwatched in certain ways that we can monopolize. So for an example, on one of these wallets, when you build them, there's actually an exchange built inside of the wallet itself. And so you can move the token out of its token during a hype cycle, migrate it into what's called a stable token that keeps its value. And then as the hype cycle dies off, you hold it, and then when the hype cycle's over, you sell, and then you buy back on the low. And you did all of this tax-free inside of your own wallet off of the government rails. Very interesting when you have the power to be your own bank, which is what this is. And so it's risky. Is it not risky? Gosh, guys, holding your own money is very, very risky. You should not take this lightly. It is highly technical. And if you don't do it wrong, you could inadvertently expose yourself and not even know you've exposed yourself. And one day you get hacked and say, how did I get hacked? And so it's my job, or what I've chosen to do, is to teach people what these risks are and how they can occur and how you cannot do them so you can keep your fortress of value safe. And so that's what we're going to cover here today. So right now, what I do is I do private blockchain boot camps is what I call them, because this is war, guys. Make no doubt. Somebody wants to steal and control all of your value, and you are fighting to keep it. Okay, and you're fighting to keep it at a global level, not at a state or country level. We're doing it at a global level this time, and so it is big. And the risk is huge, because if most people fuel or fund bad blockchains that have monopolistic attitudes, guess what's going to be running the planet? A bad.
Plus, there's a really interesting point there, and this is actually, when I first discovered it, I was actually dumbfounded. Let's say somebody steals your car, cops find it, they bring it back to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody steals your wallet, it's theirs. There's really nothing you can do.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
It's theirs.
Yeah.
You know, now it's theirs.
There's no way to prove
They
it.
own it.
There's no way to prove it.
There's really nothing you can do.
Yeah. So really importantly, guys, I hope you understand the purpose or the why as why you're here. You might have come in curious, but I hope that helps set a precedence of what we are doing here, because there is 1,000 more tokens out today that are making a silly promise to do something, and that promise is nothing but a promise, and after the bull market, it'll be gone. It would have pumped tremendously. And I assure you, there's VCs with $100 million here. Each one of them have $100 million. 5 of them together could pump a chain significantly. Watch everybody ride that up. They cash out their money, and they walk away, and everybody's left in the dust at the end. So please, please, please understand this. You are looking for global, decentralized, fixed asset classes that have utility. Okay, and if they don't have utility, and they're not fixed supply, and they're not decentralized, it's not globally accessible, it's a risk. And I'm not saying don't buy it. Buy it. Just know it's not money, and it's not going to be stable, and it might not be here in 5 or 10 years. And that's the goal. Yeah.
Will eventually, like the SEC and people like that, go after, kind of try to regulate, only from the standpoint that there's huge investor fraud potential, right? Just like they go after other people doing pump and dump schemes.
Yeah, sure. I hope that at some point they go back and look at all these chains and start nuking these guys for stealing all that money. I really do. Because it's why I got up. I'm retired, you guys. I have fun. I ride my bike. I watch movies. I do whatever I want. But once I learned how this tech worked, I'm sitting there in my office and I'm like, people are getting nuked. They're getting destroyed. Life savings are getting destroyed. I said, if I don't get out there and at least shine a voice on some of this for some people, I won't be able to sleep well at night. And and it does help me sleep well, because right here in this room, somebody stood up when Terra Luna was hot. And they stood up and they're like, hey, I've got my son's college fund. And all my friends are telling me to buy Terra Luna. And I don't know if you guys know what Terra Luna was. I see the smile. And so I sat there. And just like those fundamentals that I just went over with you guys, we laid them on top of Terra Luna. And by the time we were done, I asked him, I said, do you think your friends are right? Do you think you want to put your son's college fund in this? And he sat down and he said, no, thank you, I'm good. And 3 months later, Terra Luna crashed to zero. Okay? And so these fundamentals are real. They pose an opposite.
Just got extradited. I'm happy about that.
What's that?
Do Kwon got extradited.
Oh, Do Kwon. Oh, okay, finally. So they're going after him. Yeah, get them all. I think these guys are criminals. They're mass criminals using a technology to wipe people's wallets under the guise of some new technology that's real. Yeah.
What about the company, like there was a company called Celsius?
Yeah,
Is that like an example?
that's an example too.
Because I would think their utility was, they're your brokerage, like managing.
Yeah, and so if you understand why blockchain is here, the whole point is to disassemble the need for brokerages and holders. And so most people would say they're on this track and they're like, well, I give my money to Charles Schwab, I give my money here. Oh, this new blockchain thing, they said give their money here, and you give it, and that's the trap. There's no regulation. There's no ability for them to go after them, but you've taken on that same risk that you took on a regulated company where they can go after them and shut them down or get your money back. And so the difference is huge, but the action is identical. And that's where people are getting caught. I'm used to giving my money to these guys. It's all protected. Oh, it's blockchain. This is even safer, I hear. It's even safer. It's blockchain. They're misunderstanding what the safety is. And so they're giving to these random projects and they're getting crushed. Okay? So yeah, that would be another example of them. Like I said, there's very few, you guys. I can only identify 3 or 4 blockchains in the world that have anything to do with anything that's real. Everybody else looks like a huge fat scam when I sit next to it for long enough. And so Brad Garlinghouse is a company. It's not sovereign money. It can do what it's supposed to do, but guess what? Bitcoin and Cardano can already do what Brad's promising to do. But Bitcoin and Cardano are decentralized and global. So Brad might get some motion for a while, but at some point, these other countries that aren't on Brad's camp are going to say, yeah, but we do it this way because it's global and neutral. And I don't want to use your coin XRP, Brad. I want to use what's neutral and open. And so you will see a rise, but you may see a fall. I can't promise that, but to me it looks like a scam in the long run. Okay? So that being said, how do we hold these assets, right? So what are we looking for? We're looking for fixed supply. We're looking for, let's see. Let's go to, so, value. Okay, so I found a blockchain that I liked about 7 years ago. And what I realized was this guy met all of the metrics for value over 6,000 years of history. And the network was called Cardano. And what it does is it allows everybody to self-custody their own money. And I'm going to say this, and I really want the thinking caps on. It allows you to self-custody your money and earn yield. Okay, nobody's excited about that yet. But I want you to really think, in what environment are you actually holding your bar of gold and little bars of gold are popping off of it and you're getting more gold? In every situation, you're handing your money to somebody else except Cardano. Except Cardano. And on some blockchains, you're actually locking your money down for a period of time. 2 years in some cases on some chains. And it's not even in your custody. Is there risk? That's a huge risk, right? What can happen in 2 years on blockchain, right? It could go zero in 10 minutes. And your money's locked in some other dude's server for 2 years for growth. This is dangerous, but it matches what we currently do in our current environment, so people don't perceive it as dangerous, right? And so understanding that nuance is what's going to protect you. You must self-custody your assets. You must self-custody these assets because nobody can chase them once they've gotten away with it. Whereas in the US, we have that ability to contact somebody. Okay, and so when we're buying these assets, if they don't allow you to self-custody and earn return, what does the chain become? It becomes a pump and a dump because everybody's waiting for it to go up so they can do what?
Sell it.
Take that cash, right? It went up. If I don't sell it, I will lose that value. But in a chain that you can hold your money and it's earning interest returns, well, you're gaining the blockchain market share, so it's going up 200% a year, plus you're earning interest on top of that. And so less and less people are realizing, or more and more people are realizing, I don't want to sell my Cardano when I have it. I don't have to trade and it grows with the market and I earn interest on it. No other place in the world can I do that. And what's also interesting about Cardano is it has a new governance system, voting. So it's solving real world problems. Remember I talked earlier about what makes something valuable? Utility. So to have a blockchain that has a fixed supply, that's decentralized, that allows people to hold their own money and earn interest without it being locked up, and allows for voting so they can communicate their opinions on certain issues in the world. To me, this sounds more like a global communication grid, and we should start looking more into things like Cardano. Okay? And the reason things scare me is because there's other networks out there that built into the very structure of the chain, something called front running. Have you guys ever heard of that? You've heard of front running? Can you guys explain what front running is?
Yeah, it's where you use the order of transactions in a block that gets added to the chain to manipulate trades that are incoming. Like you see that someone wants to trade for a certain amount, and then you front run their price with a cheaper price that you can find in X market or arbitrage, and you front run that transaction and you make a
profit
percentage.
Right. And so it's awesome that he knows this because it is a travesty. So there's blockchains out there that have built into the core of the chain under the guise of blockchain and free money and liberty. And there's a mechanism in there for people that validate, because not anybody can do it. You have to run a node to do it. But you can see transactions coming in, and let's say you want to buy something for 5 cents. I buy it for 5 cents. I sell it to you for 5.01. And you have no control over that. I front ran you. And so that's a manipulation in the transaction. Do we want a global system that has mechanisms built into it that allow for that? No way.
It almost sounds like these trading systems where they're trying to reconcile the bid and the
Right.
ask price, and then they make their little margin.
Their little margin.
It sounds exactly like that.
It's exactly what it is. But the problem is they've done it on blockchain now, and it can't be undone or taken out of that chain.
But part of it's kind of built into the way the fee structure works for most
Sure.
coins, where the front runner is basically just paying a higher fee.
Correct.
In gas costs or whatever it is.
Right. And that's a classing
front
system. And that's a classing system. Because anytime you change the fee to do something, all of a sudden you put everybody in a line according to their wealth. Right? The rich people can afford to pay that, the poor people have to wait. And so you're going to class them, and you're also going to take money from them in between their transactions. This is not a free communication system, guys. And so when you look at blockchains, when people say do your research, they're talking about doing these transactions, calculating what's going on, figuring out the mechanisms underneath. And I've done that for 9 years. I've looked at these chains, and Cardano is the only one I can find that has no hidden bodies that can exchange value underneath your nose. It is a direct transaction, and the way that the UTXO works, it is impossible to change it unless there's a vote. And so these types of systems should be the ones to proliferate. But let me ask you this, we live in Vegas. Do people do what's good for them all the time? No. They don't. Do people deeply research and understand what they're doing? No, only some of us do. And so the trick is how do we get this message out that there are wolves out there, and the wolf we feed will be the wolf that lives, and we need to pick the best wolf to have free communication across the planet. That's right now the big debate. And so like I said, holding these assets, what does that do? That puts money into the ecosystem, it supports it, it's the wolf you feed, and it values you. It goes up 2% on average per year, and you're earning interest. So your future is bright. So picking the better chain will also give you the better returns as well, as long as enough people understand it's the better chain. And I think that's the narrative we're going to start to see happen over time. We're going to start seeing people use these chains, pull those knobs and go, dang, I crapped out. I lost money, or this didn't help me. And then they're going to go and do another chain and be like, this is nice and smooth and frictionless, and it allows me a lot of benefits. And then they're going to start evaluating where they really want to store their money. And I think this is a rule in history for money. Money will always find the path of least friction. It will always find the path of least friction and preservation. It happens all throughout history. It takes time, it takes a little time, but I believe Cardano will be one of the top ranking blockchains in the world because of the utility and the core structure of how they built it. It allows everybody to freely hold their value and exchange it at their will. So, that being said, guys, I know we're getting close to running out of time. So let's look at some of these wallets and figure out what they look like. We're going to go over some of the interface and kind of show you what it looks like to hold some value on these networks. So let me see. Hopefully my account is working to connect in here. We're going to remote into one of my computers at home. And we are going to look at a blockchain wallet. Let me see.
I have a question about the front running.
Yeah.
So how do they resell it to you? They just create a blockchain to try to or
Unfortunately,
are you using that company?
when you commit to a transaction on certain chains, you have to fund that transaction with a fee. And that fee has to have everything built in it, and people buffer that fee because if they don't pay enough, they'll take the fee and kick the transaction back to you. And so people will overfloat the fee to cover that difference, and somebody's just stealing that extra chunk that you put in instead of it going back to you or going towards the transaction. It's basically
Gas fees?
that's a gas fee. Yeah, that's a gas fee. So let me just pull this up real quick. I have a wallet ready already. Here we go. So here's a little tester wallet that I like to play with. And as you can see, it has multiple wallets. So you can open as many wallets or accounts as you want on blockchain, and they don't cost anything per month. So you can break your value up as much as you want to increase security. And so I tell people, you hold, you should have at least 5 wallets. Any individual that really wants to self-custody should have 5 different accounts or wallets. You should have a vault that you don't touch but once or twice a year for income pulls. And you pull a year's worth of income out into another wallet. And that wallet becomes your monthly draw that goes into a monthly wallet. And the
MetaMask? I'm sorry.
MetaMask would be Ethereum. Yeah.
Oh, that's a wallet?
That is a wallet, yes. That's an Ethereum wallet. So that would be a wallet that has front. So
Is the reason to sort of layer in all these different wallets is purely security?
it is purely access and security, because every time you technically access your money, if you do it incorrectly, you impose a risk. And so the safest money is the money that is accessed the least. Does that make sense? And so if you have a wallet you touch once a year, the trace on that movement is imperceivable with all the white noise going on. If you were to access a wallet every single day, you can start to trace, or somebody can start to build a pattern behind that wallet. And so you're going to have 5 wallets. You're going to have the vault that you touch yearly for your yearly draw. You're going to have your monthly draw, and then you're going to have your monthly user, the one that has a simpler password that has just the amount of money for a couple of weeks or a month. If that wallet gets hacked, you lose a very small amount of money, and you can always replenish yourself. And then you should also have a junk wallet. This is your 5th wallet. Why should we have a junk wallet? Does anybody have any ideas about that?
In case you get scammed?
Oh, good. Okay, so you're on the right track. You're on the right track. So you're going to want a junk wallet in case you do anything risky. This is the funniest thing on the planet. People are doing transactions with other people and they're not sure, and they've got all their stuff in the wallet. Why would you do this? Wallets are free. Look, it costs me nothing. You open a new wallet, then do that transaction with whatever's needed for the transaction in that wallet. That way, if anything goes wrong, they get away with nothing. Okay? These are strategies that people just don't employ. And so teaching people a 5 wallet plan, and then you do hardware wallets on your 2 biggest wallets, and then you can do passwords on the rest, and then on your final wallet, it can be a mobile wallet. So you're here now, and you can just do transactions wherever you wish on your phone. But at no time on the phone are you ever risking your vaults. Those are at home, offline, cold storage, hardware devices. They don't even see outside or online.
Oh, the ledger. Like the ledger?
A ledger or a Trezor, yeah, we recommend. So you're going to always use a ledger or Trezor for communication, because that creates the gap of you putting a password on a computer. You never want to send money and type the password on your computer. If that computer has malware or keystroker or somebody's watching, they just got your blockchain password, and now they can move money out of your account. But if you use a hardware device, what happens is the transaction is encrypted, sent to the device. Only your device has the key to decrypt and sign that transaction, re-encrypt it, and send it back and send it on the blockchain. This becomes the area where the secret information is shared, and it's never shared on the computer, which means you're never exposing yourself. You can hold $100 million in these things, and they can't be hacked if you do it right. Okay, so we have the wallet, we have the Trezor device, so we're not communicating our password on a terminal. We're sending that money, and then what happens if we lose that Trezor?
Yeah, I lost mine.
You lost yours. Okay, so where's your seed phrase backup?
I don't know. I did this like 2020 and then
Okay.
life happened.
You need to take my class. Come take my class. Come take my class. Okay. So here's, I'm going to give these to everybody. I'm going to give these to everybody now because it just shudders my heart to hear that you lost it. Okay, this is a basic seed phrase sheet. And on this sheet, it just gives you a basic format that you're going to follow when creating a wallet so you can access it later on. And you probably know, so you can pass it if you're good at this stuff. Yeah. And so what have I done here? I'll go over the sheet with you guys so you can understand it. And ma'am, you're definitely going to need this the most. Okay, if you guys want one, you can grab one right over here. But I'll go over the sheet with you guys and I'll explain the whys. Okay, so when you're building a wallet, a lot of people don't understand, if you don't properly document everything when you're building the wallet, you risk not being able to get back to your money in case of an emergency. And so to have a little handy sheet like this, and I should put this sheet on my website so people can just download it, but this helps you understand which wallet. Now you mentioned MetaMask, right? And MetaMask is an Ethereum wallet. What if you have MetaMask? What if you have Cardano? What if you have Bitcoin? You've got a whole bunch of makers, different wallet makers. And you want to be able to keep track of this sheet and know which maker made that wallet so you know which sheet to grab. So at the first one, it says wallet maker. So in the case for you, you would say, oh, MetaMask would be the maker for my wallet, and you'd write MetaMask. That way you would know this is a MetaMask Ethereum wallet. And then you have to name the wallet. Why do we name our wallets? Because we've talked about this before. You're going to have at least 5. And you want to be able to keep track of which one's which. Vault 1, Vault 2, Vault 3, whatever organizational pattern suits you, you name the wallet accordingly so you understand which wallet it is. Okay? And then you're going to have a spending password. The spending password should be complicated, and in some cases you won't use it because you'll be using a hardware device, and you'll be doing something slightly different. Maybe a PIN, maybe a password too. It really depends on your security. And then you should be given a 15, 12, 20, 24, 30 word seed phrase. The new encrypted seed phrases that have weighted words are 20 words. You'll see those proliferate everywhere now because the actual words have weight. So some words are more valuable than others, and so they were able to cut it back. And there's duplicates now, which increases the algorithm difficulty tremendously, because now an algorithm can't figure out if there should be a duplicate in here or not. And so that makes it a lot harder to figure out. And so you'll see these 20-word seed phrases. And so I've numbered it nicely. You're going to write each word in there, and then you're going to double check and make sure all the words are right. You're going to build the wallet. You're going to copy the first receive address, and you're going to paste it in a note. And why are we going to do that? Because we're going to delete this wallet. Why are we going to delete this wallet? Because we have to check if the paper we made works. Nobody ever does this. And then when they lose their Trezor or their phone breaks, they come shaking to this untested paper going, I hope I did this right. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We want to know this is tested already and that we used it properly. So you copy that first receive address, put it on a note, you destroy the wallet, and then you rebuild it back off of these words. The receive address should match the first one you got. If the receive address is different, you built yourself a different wallet, and there's some discrepancy here. Now, if you don't understand what that is completely, what you can do is send $5 to the wallet. Then you can delete the wallet, and when you rebuild it, that $5 should pop back. That would be a representative token of your money, the big money, right? And so if you do that, this paper has been tested and you know it works. Then you duplicate it and you put it on steel. What does that mean, guys? What does it mean, put it on steel?
Or like stamp it or something.
Stamp it? Okay, so they have these things called crypto steels, and I need to start bringing them and giving some away every now and again to people that answer questions. It's a good idea because I have a lot of them. And the crypto steel is a sheet of steel, and you put these words on steel. Why do we put them on steel? Fireproof, waterproof. It's easier to find. It has a weight component to it. It's durable. Where do we put our steel?
In a safe.
In a safe? Okay, so we know exactly. Go for her safe, right? Go for her safe. If she's got $1 million, we know it's in your safe. We got you now. Actually, I would recommend not putting it in a safe. I would recommend when you're talking about a mass of money, you're talking about your wealth, and you have decided to carry it and leverage it yourself, you have to be a little more creative than that. I would recommend things like, and you don't have to do any of these, but removing a baseboard and sticking it behind a baseboard in your home, a place in the attic, maybe a custom box that's mounted to a wall, something that looks insignificant to hide this super thin steel sheet. Why? Because we don't want it discovered. We don't want it found. And then in that case, if I'm hiding it in some place really strange, right, I'm going to have to leave myself breadcrumbs as to where it is. Isn't this strange? So low tech, and yet we're working with the most high-tech global financial instruments in the world, but we're using zero tech to store it because if it goes online, it becomes a risk. And so we have to do these things, these little tricks to safely store our crypto. So 3 crypto steals. If you have dedicated family members, you guys are tight, you trust them, maybe send one to a brother. Put one inside of a wall, and I mean a chop saw, and insert it in a wall with a string and seal it up. You should never have to access it. It's an emergency device, right? You don't want it laying around ever. And so get creative. Some people have hollowed out books. They put them on their bookshelf, and they have one inside of a random book. And then they have a note to the wife, honey, this is my favorite book. If I die, please grab it. Don't let anybody take it. And then wife knows. She finds this thing, there's a note, she knows how it works, right? And so these are the things we have to do to be creative when we're hosting and holding our own value on blockchain. We don't have to do this if we want to use Vanguard or if we want to use BlackRock or somebody to hold our value. But if we want to act like a bank, leverage our money, and experience 200% growth without people taking a portion of it, these are the lengths we must go to make sure that those funds are secure. Okay, and so like I said, you guys, I do a 4-hour boot camp, and I do it for free. And I will sit with you guys personally, and we will go over the nuts and bolts and the details of constructing that wallet, and I will help you destroy it, I will help you rebuild it back, and we will do it over and over and over again until you are an expert, because that's what you need to be if you're going to play in this arena. We can't have any people that kind of know what's going on. You want to play with the big boys, you want to self-custody your assets, you need to take on some pretty big learning and responsibility to do so. So if you guys are ever interested in that, you go to my website, cardanomint.com, and sign up. I have a schedule there. You'll meet with me. We'll do a 15-minute intro, and then we'll talk about scheduling and what the boot camp looks like for you. And like I said, I don't charge. I'm literally going to spend all my time teaching this because I have nothing better to do. And I hurt myself riding my mountain bike, and so I've got extra time. My shoulder hurts, and I can't ride right now. So I have a ton of extra time. And so I'm happy to help you guys do it. What's that? It's Cardano, C-A-R-D-A-N-O, M-I-N-T, cardanomint.com. And let me see if I have it right. Yeah, I think I did have it on another page.
No, on the printout, you have it on there.
Oh, got it on there, guys. Yeah, sorry, thanks. Yeah, check out the worksheet. But, and like I said, you never want to digitize your seed phrase. Never want to digitize it. Don't take snapshot. I did figure out, though, a Polaroid is a great way to do it. Who's looking at Polaroids from the 80s right now? We've got them. They're in a box. They're still good. So what I always worry about is the durability of a technology. Because, like hard drives and flash drives, they're going to expire at some point. Polaroids are still good, and they're all way from the 80s.
I'm sure you know about M discs, right?
Yeah, I use M discs right now, yeah. And so are those considered more reliable? Because they're solids?
Well, it's a 100-year lifespan CD media.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was 100 years.
This is an essential risk with development because, like, for example, you cannot, unless you know how to carve on the steel, you have to give someone to carve it on the steel for you. So you're kind of letting that information out. I heard also...
No, don't ever do that.
Do that is with dog tags. Dog tags are incredibly easy to stamp. Anyone with a hammer can do it.
Yeah, I've seen washers and a bolt. And you can 3D print a stamping template and stamp them. But the crypto steels and a $15 engraver pen, all you do is handwrite, and you can just handwrite it in there. And I've tried to scratch it out. I've tried to pound it out. It's in there good enough to where you can really read it. But I do agree deep stamping is clearer and more legible. But they have some pretty good grinding tools. You just write, and it'll work pretty well. So I think I spent $15 on 10 steel plates and then $15 on a pen. And so I'll just, $30 investment, and I can make 10 wallets. And that's pretty substantial. So yeah, just kind of look for those things. And really it is, guys, it's all about being creative and considering just the actual facts that I just want this to be durable and hidden. And if you can do that in a way that doesn't require a crypto steel, like I said, you can do washers and a nut, or you can do, whatever, anything. As long as it's really durable and hidden, you should be okay. There's a guy out there, he's like, yeah, I have a basket in my garage. I've got all these nuts and bolts and baskets everywhere in the garage. And he's like, and in this one, I've got nothing but bolts and washers, and it's all my seed phrases are in there. He's like, that's how I hold them. And nobody's ever going to take that stuff. It's just going to sit there. And so it's pretty interesting how people can do it. Do you guys have any ideas? I'm always looking for really cool ideas on how I'd hide my crypto. But I wouldn't give your best ideas away. What's that?
Like a vault that you bury.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there you go, bury it underground. You just don't want it accessible or easily movable, right? Because if somebody runs through your house, what are they going to take? They're going to take your monitors. So don't stick your crypto steel on the back of your monitor. I know people that have the magnetic thing and they stick it on there. Oh, your crypto steel just walked out with your monitor, buddy. Don't do it. So hide them, put them behind walls, lock them up somewhere, put them somewhere deep, and that way, when you do this, guys, and you do it right, there is a satisfaction that nobody and nothing can take your money from you. And I'll tell you, when you start thinking about how you're situated right now, that's not your situation. A bank could lock you out of your money in a heartbeat. A bank could close and shut down in a heartbeat. And everything you own would be inaccessible. And so I feel great the way I'm set up because my bank is never down. I can always move money whenever I want. And that is a really empowering thing. So I hope you guys got a little bit out of this. Do you guys have any questions for me? Do you guys want me to you guys have my website, so you guys are good. I think this is all I've got for you guys today. I know we started we're ending about 10 minutes late. I'm open for questions if you guys have any. Any questions about any coins that you've heard about? I do a tremendous amount of research on tokens themselves because I want to try and rule out good players and bad players.
Do you have any experience working with the privileged ledgers?
What's a privileged ledger?
Let's say it's the same blockchain technology, but it's a privileged ledger for recording, for example, health data or transportation data.
Okay.
Or insurance data.
So I guess I would say yes then, because there's a component of the Cardano blockchain called Atala Prism, and that is the code that contains all of that. It uses a global accepted DID standard for digital identity and medical records.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I have
not
messed with that.
necessarily- yeah, but it's
Yeah.
a prime example.
Yeah. So yes. But what's your question? Are you thinking about building some stuff out on that, or?
Well, we already have a platform where we collect a lot of data, including the health data. And
Very
it's
good.
Frictionless and faceless data that we collect. So we're trying to implement the blockchain where we can actually become like a source of truth. For example, for transportation, we have a lot of GPS trackers
I love it.
with the accelerometers and 9-axis sensors, so we
Okay.
can actually tell if the box has flipped or dropped and etc. But right now, it's just trust my word. But if we can actually blockchain
Track it. That would be great.
that becomes a
Look at the toolkit for Atala Prism, and I think you're going to find a lot of great tools for specifically tracking that type of stuff. So good luck on that. Let me know if you have any problems. You have my info, so reach out to me. I'd love to hear it. Yes, sir.
How about the NFTs? Are there any of those that check your boxes like Cardano does?
Okay, so let's consider what an NFT is. So an NFT represents a one-of-a-kind item that is produced by an individual, artwork or whatever. It has the value that everybody feels it has. So it is not fungible, right? This is what we would consider a non-fungible token, which means it has no static value. It's based off of the emotions of the individuals, like a Babe Ruth trading card. So and plus, they're fixed supply, right? But there's not so many that it could be used as a transactional currency or a validation mechanism. So once again, we're looking at two completely different arenas, and a lot of people confuse them. I had somebody in here, she was an artist, and she was like, no, none of this is going to work. Everybody's just going to be making their own NFTs and selling art for food. And I was like, I'm sorry, honey, that's probably not going to be the way it works, but you never know. But we have to understand there are businesses that are erecting things and selling products on blockchain, hence the NFTs. They want to make money. They're selling these really cool pieces of art and they want to make money off of you. There's businesses that are trying to solve problems on private blockchains, and then the world is looking for a stable money that isn't manipulated or devalued by government. So all of these things are happening in tandem. And so because they're happening together, it's this big mishmash of all of these different products and things, and there's a big confusion because everybody thinks everything is another thing like Bitcoin. And so distinguishing the difference in the categories of what they are, what they represent, will help you guys choose wisely in what you want to do. If you want to buy some NFTs and ride the pump and dump and sell some stuff, that's great. But you wouldn't buy an NFT to preserve value or for utility, right? It's more like novelty, I think, right? And you wouldn't want to buy XRP for value preservation. XRP in itself is a token that settles transactions quickly through Brad Garlinghouse's company, where he has connections with very big people, so he's getting traction with it. But it doesn't represent a sovereign money. It is his private business and a token with utility. And so it's considering these things and understanding, well, Bitcoin is owned and controlled by nobody. It has a fixed supply. It is globally liquid and recognizable. This is different from XRP. This is different from Ethereum. This is different from a lot of tokens. And so Cardano mimics Bitcoin. In fact, Cardano was written in Haskell, and it uses the EUTXO standard, and Bitcoin uses the UTXO standard. So did you know they marry perfectly? You can execute something on Cardano, and it'll happen on Bitcoin because their technology is identical. A lot of people don't know that. And Bitcoin was written on C++, which makes it difficult to scale, and the transaction settlement time isn't good. Well, what is good? What is Cardano good at? Settlement time and transaction. 1 million transactions per second last month, right? So if they're doing high-speed liquidity exchanges and Bitcoin needs help, now we understand why we're hearing things about the Bitcoin operating system built on Cardano to leverage the liquidity on Bitcoin. And so we can see these things starting to merge together for functionality. And so if you consider that Bitcoin is carrying, or will be carrying close to $7 to $13 trillion after this bull market. And we have networks that now have bowed and said, hey, we can help you with this liquidity. We can wrap it in our tokens and send it off these networks for frictionless, nearly free transactions. Now we can see these mergers coming together and global communication can start. So this is really what we're looking at, guys. And it's a lot of research. It takes about 150 hours for the average person to even start to get a grasp of what is going on. And I have vomited a lot of information and facts on you guys. It starts now. I want you guys to do the research, check the chains, check the owners, check decentralization, check token quantity, see if it's fixed, see if it can be, are they manipulating the token during markets to keep the price stable? Should it be dropping, but they're burning it so fast it's holding? Because that's a manipulation, right? And so we need to figure these things out so we can start to put our value in a place that we want that won't manipulate it down. And right now, that's the big game. The big game is how many dollars can I get out of each human that is participating in these networks? And then there's this other silo that's saying, no, value preservation here, please. So pick what you want to do. And I'm not,
I was just going to ask, how do you feel about Solana and all the new coins being traded on?
Yeah, Solana. So Solana's purpose is fast settlement time. So if you look it up, their whole goal is, hey, we're going to be the fastest settlement chain, but it's not decentralized and it's not fixed. And Cardano and Bitcoin are already doing it.
I just like literally about 2 weeks ago, we completed like an accelerator program with Solana.
Mm-hmm.
So we learned about the technology, and I've been in software engineering for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I can smell the fish when I.
Thank you. We have a man on the inside that is agreeing with me. Thank you so much, man. You can smell it, can't you? You
Yeah.
can kind of see
I
this
can't
is
say exactly what's wrong with it,
but something's off. Yes.
I
Listen,
read a book
guys.
by William Sorensen, it's like, without pinpointing to a particular place or a person, I can tell you that something somewhere is definitely wrong.
Something's wrong. Now, let's consider Solana as a whole already. It's crashed several times.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
It
that,
shuts
like,
down. Do you want your bank to shut down? No, you don't want your communication grid to die. It's just not going to do what it promises, but it will rise over time. People will get wealthy, but at some point it has a chink in the armor, and if you're looking for long-term storage of your value and growth, you want to remove these chinks from your portfolio. All right, guys, well, thank you so much. This is really all I got today, so thank you. I appreciate your time.